People are flummoxed as to why Donald Trump is doing well in the polling. Well, I'm going to show you a lot of the categories he's doing well in, and I'm going to explain it to you based on the other numbers that we just got from public policy polling in South Carolina. First of all, how's Trump doing overall? Well, I was told that after this debate, it was a terrible performance, all the pundits told me. Now, we covered it here on the Young Turks live, tytnetwork.com/live. We cover all the debates, all the elections. And Jimmy and I were adamant that actually Trump did perfectly fine and he'd be fine. So now let's go to the South Carolina polling and see if we were right or the mainstream pundits were right. Oh, yeah, look at that. Donald Trump maintains, in fact, grows his gigantic lead in South Carolina, nearly doubling Ted Cruz and Mark Rubio. He's at 35. They're both at 18%. Kasich's at 10. Jeb and Ben Carson are at 7%. So, no, his debate performance did not hurt him. In fact, it helped him, just as we said on the Young Turks, as usual, the opposite of the mainstream media, who once again, for the millionth time in a row, got it wrong because they want a politician. The politicians are their buddies. When they see a non-politician, they go, oh, they're going to hate that because they hate it. No, Republican voters hate the politicians as much as Democratic voters hate politicians. They like what Trump had to say. Okay, so how's Trump doing in the different categories? Well, I told you before in Iowa, for example, he did better with moderate voters. When you look at South Carolina, his support is unfortunately enormously consistent. So with somewhat conservative voters, he's got a 41% approval rating. 41% are in favor of him. With younger voters, this is all on the Republican side. 40%. Men, 38%. Self-identified Republicans, 36%. Evangelicals, a surprisingly strong 35%. Middle-aged voters, 35%. Non-evangelicals, 34%. Pretty much the same as evangelicals. Women, 31%. Self-identified independents, 30%. Very conservative voters, 30%. Seniors, 30%. Moderates, 29%. So he does fine in all those categories. Now, the reason I bring you that is because, again, the pundits tell me, oh, no. When the race gets narrower, okay, well, all the moderates or all the conservatives or all the evangelicals will go to non-Trump candidates. Well, they're right here, and they're not going anywhere. They still like Trump. Okay. Now, during the debate, he attacked George W. Bush and said he did not keep us safe. 9/11 happened on his watch. Every pundit said, oh, my God, the Republican voters will hate him. Well, there's good reason to believe that because, as the polling indicates, Bush is relatively popular, with 64% of voters seeing him favorably to 25% who have an unfavorable opinion. Obviously, this is all on the Republican side. So if 64% of Republican voters in South Carolina like Bush, it should hurt you that you attacked Bush. Wrong. Trump is still leading even among voters with a positive view of George W. Bush. He gets 26% to 22% for Cruz, 20% for Rubio, and 10% for Jeb Bush. Now, isn't that amazing? For people who say, I really like George W. Bush, they only 10% of them are in favor of Jeb Bush. 26% are in favor of Donald Trump, even though he just spit in George Bush's eye. Okay, now, Trump, on the other hand, is dominant with a swath of voters that don't like George W. Bush, getting 57% to 12% for Kasich and 11% each for Cruz and Rubio. So who the hell are these guys, and why do they like Trump so much? He, goes against Republican talking points. He attacks the Bush family, the last Republican president. He does all the things pundits say he shouldn't do. Why do they like him? It's not that complicated. It's in the numbers. They asked just Trump supporters now a number of different questions. Let's look at the questions together and the picture will be obvious. 70% of Trump supporters think the Confederate flag should still be flying over the state capitol, to only 20% who agree with it being taken down. So this is all, of course, South Carolina Republican polling. Oh, so they're more in favor of the Confederates. Gee, I wonder why they're so in favor of the Confederate flag. All right, well, here's my favorite fact. I hope you're sitting for this. This is amazing. In fact, 38% of Trump voters say they wish the South had won the Civil War, to only 24% glad the North won, and 38% who aren't sure. Now, let's note the awesome irony of this. If the South had won the Civil War, Donald Trump would be in a different country. That country would be called America. The South would be called something else. Okay, maybe the Confederacy. Whatever you jackbags would like to call it, okay? But it would have been two different countries. Donald Trump is from New York, the North. he wouldn't even be in your country. You guys are supporting people who were traitors to America, literally committed treason. And these knuckleheads are like, yeah, that's right, man. That's why I like Donald Trump, because I'm a real American. I wish America had lost the Civil War, though. Okay. You see, racists aren't that sophisticated. They're not listening to debates for the minutia of their tax proposals or what they're going to do with the Trident submarines. They just hear Trump shouting, I hate the Muslims. I hate the Mexicans. The blacks have it too good. And they're like, yeah, that guy, I like that guy. That's the South Carolina Republican voter. Okay, hold. Wait, I mentioned Muslims. I didn't give you numbers. Let me give you numbers. By an 80-9 spread, Trump voters support his proposed ban on Muslims entering the United States. Guys, it ain't that complicated. He's just the loudest voice saying, I hate these others. And Republican voters in places like South Carolina are like, yeah, me too. Meanwhile, the other idiots are talking about a VAT tax. A value-added tax? What are you talking about? You just have to spit in the other's face a little bit harder like Trump does. The rest of it is irrelevant. And debating what happened 15 years ago on 9/11, they don't care. That dude doesn't like Muslims and Mexicans. I like that guy. And that Obama, he agrees with me. He's not even from here. All right, do gays do any better with these voters? What do you think? In fact, 31% who support a ban on homosexuals entering the United States as well, something no more than 17% of anyone else's voters think is a good idea. So they're like, hey, let's ban the Muslims. While we're at it, shoot, let's ban the gays too. Okay, but not by as big a margin as they want to ban Muslims. Now, to put all the views, as public policy polling explains, to put all the views towards Muslims in context, 32% of Trump voters continue to believe the policy of Japanese internment during World War II was a good one, compared to only 33% who oppose it and 35% who have no opinion one way or another. These guys are for internment camps. Gee, why do they like Trump? Look, the answers are in the numbers. So if you hear a pundit on television or any of these other establishment websites telling you that in their gut the American people think X, Y, or Z, call bullshit on them. These are the real numbers. The reason why people like Trump is only two things, and this poll didn't cover the second half. The second half is they don't like the scummy politicians. And Trump says, I'm not taking any of the donor money. I'm not beholden to them. And people think, thank God. That part, everybody shares. The other part is, it's the racism, stupid. He just says it louder than the other guys, and they're like, that's my man. Young Turks.